Notre Dame football history like none other. We dive into it next here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We're talking Notre Dame football. We got Ben Belden on the line from Slap the Sign. You can join him and the rest of the staff there on the Fansided Network for Notre Dame football, talking Irish there. I, again, encourage you to help us build the channel by grabbing the Amazon link you find in the description section below. Just do your Amazon shopping as you normally would using that link and help us build the channel. And also join us on Patreon at the Voice of College Football community as we build that out and provide you exclusive live streams and give you the opportunity to jump online here and talk with me, the Voice of College Football. Ben, how you doing today?
I am doing really well, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. And this is an off-season topic that I've thrown out in previous off-seasons that's become a whole lot of fun in just kind of exploring the history and the favorites and the worst and the best, and then looking forward to what might be maybe a little on the hypothetical side, but it's always fun to imagine. All right, let's look at Notre Dame's illustrious past. So, wow, you've got a landscape that few can rival when it comes to great wins, historic wins, impactful wins, or maybe for you, they're just meaningful for a different reason and aren't necessarily the games that most of us would think of. But whether you want to go the full all-time scale that goes back into the archives or whatever your frame of reference, Ben, the wins that have resonated with you the most.
All right. So, I was born in 91. So I really became a Notre Dame football fan that kind of cared, I guess, kind of by the late 90s when I started to understand football, I guess. So that's kind of like my frame of reference point. So there were, I guess whenever I became a Notre Dame fan, it wasn't particularly real exciting. And then, Charlie White or Tyrone Willingham and Charlie Weiss came along and it wasn't exciting at all. So with the exception of one or two good seasons in there. So I don't know, the wins, I guess, that stick out. I think both times that Notre Dame played at USC to kind of clinch their undefeated regular seasons, both of those wins. So we're talking, I guess, 2011 and then just recently here in 2018. Those were the two wins, I think, that were probably the two most impactful wins for me. I can kind of remember sitting around on the edge of my seat for both of those. This most recent one, I was actually coaching a basketball game when the game started. It wasn't going real well for Notre Dame at first, but catching the end of those games and just like the jubilation of Notre Dame's competing were really impactful ones. I don't know. I think, my dad, who passed away this time last year, was a big Notre Dame fan, and I can think back to like certain games with him that I was at that weren't necessarily huge games, but I can think back to a game where Brady Quinn hit Jeff Samardzija for a really long 60-some yard touchdown against UCLA late to win that game. I think it was like a 20-17 type of a game. That was one that kind of sticks out. So, those three, I think, just because, two competing for national title type things, and then just kind of being there for some exciting moments with my dad are kind of the ones that stick out for me personally.
Ben Belden joining us from Slap the Sign, talking Notre Dame history and his frame of reference going back to the late 90s, about 20 years in regards to Notre Dame's big wins and excruciating losses. So we turn the tables on you now, Ben. And for the historic, great program, what this becomes is the wins just pile up on each other. And even though Notre Dame has not had the best of the last 20 years in its history, but still, obviously, the wins far outweigh the losses in terms of numbers. But when the expectations are high and you're trying to compete for championships and have those type of hopes for your football program, obviously the losses are more impactful, more crushing, and stay with you for the average person. So when you look back upon your Notre Dame fandom, what are the losses that still stay with you?
I mean, I could talk about this. I could talk for a half hour about this, to be honest with you. To name a few, definitely the infamous Bush push game of 2005, where Notre Dame had, people always talk about that final play where Reggie Bush was pushed into the end zone, but my by Matt Leinart. But, before that, even, I mean, Notre Dame being up 31-28, USC had a 4th and 9 deep in their own territory, and a Notre Dame cornerback, Ambrose Wooden, got beat for 60 some odd yards, which set up then USC's, the theatrics at the end of that game. That's definitely takes the cake. I can also, I can think of a couple other ones. Probably another really excruciating one was going down to Florida State. They were 6-0, I believe, 5-0, 6-0 at the time. And the phantom offensive pass interference, not that it wasn't necessarily offensive pass interference, but pass interference that took away that last touchdown that would have given them the win at Florida State that was not called on. I mean, Notre Dame ran the same play in the red zone that whole game, and it wasn't called until the final possession. So that was excruciating. And then just one more, I guess, watching, having Stanford, and this is 2015, having Stanford, down late in that game at Stanford in 2015. Notre Dame was 10-1 and maybe on their way to the college football playoff if they won that game. And Stanford kicks a field goal at the end after some very porous prevent defense from the Irish. That was another excruciating one as well. But like I say, there's probably 4 or 5 more right there with those ones. But those are the 3 that I think of right off the bat.
Absolutely. The wins and the losses, the best and the worst. We're running it down with Ben Belden from Slap the Sign, talking Notre Dame football here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So if you love the game we love, and if you don't, I have no idea why you're watching. So this is the place to be for college football discussion, debate, and analysis each and every day. Lock it into the voice of college football. Please like, comment, and share the videos and subscribe, of course. All right, Ben, we've talked about the games. Let's talk about the players. Who is your favorite all-time Notre Dame player?
I'm going to give you one on each side of the ball. My favorite all-time Notre Dame player on offense is Brady Quinn. He just happened to be the quarterback at Notre Dame, 4 games like that Bush Push game, which is, I mean, I became a Notre Dame fan whenever I was 8, 9 years old, but I became like a diehard whenever I was in my teenage years. And that's kind of when, Brady Quinn was, at the height of his powers. So, and then kind of from the same team on defense, Tom Zbikowski, safety, who all returned punts. He was an electric player and just a really cool story. And, so he was didn't have the greatest NFL career after Notre Dame, but he was definitely probably I have a number 9 jersey in my closet somewhere.
Ben, who's your favorite player right now?
That's a great question. I don't know, because I think as I've gotten older, and I'm kind of still on I think, but as I've gotten older, I analyze it more. And so, there's a little bit less of the pure fandom. Favorite player now, I mean, Dexter Williams was a guy that I liked a lot. He just went to the NFL. Man, I don't know. Probably Alohi Gilman, I guess, if I had to pick one. I for some reason, I like the safeties that fly all over the field. That kind of just excites me. And, he has a great story, transfer from the Naval Academy and that type of thing. And, if you hear him speak, he's a great leader type, and I kind of gravitate to those type of guys. So safety Alohi Gilman, I guess, takes the cake for right now.
And that's always the most fun question for me, is because the greatest players can typically, there can be a list, and it certainly can be debated, but the group of players, it's difficult to debate. Everyone comes up with generally the same list. But when you talk about favorite player, there's no criteria. It can be favorite for whatever reason you'd like it. And obviously the favorite players and the best players typically overlap for a lot of people, but at the same time, a lot of people gravitate for some particular backstory or a feel-good story or swag or whatever the case might be. Talking Notre Dame football Absolutely. With Ben Belden on Slap the Sign. Was there another player that came to mind?
Yeah, I think, a guy that actually I got to talk to a little bit in an interview whenever he committed to Notre Dame was Jafar Armstrong. So I kind of can't believe I forgot him. He, making the switch from wide receiver to running back was big for him last year. I think big things are on the horizon for him. So, I haven't really talked to him since he committed, but, I'd like to think that since I talk to him and things like he's a guy that I pull for, I guess, since I've had that a little bit of a relationship with him.
So who do you think is the best player on the roster right now?
Probably it has to be one of the pass rushers, I would think. So I would say maybe Julian Okwara. Khalid Kareem is, kind of equal to that. But I think, that's Notre Dame's biggest strength is the pass rushing right now. So you've got to go with one of those guys. And I think, out of that group, I would guess I would have to say Julian Okwara is the best and maybe most important player for Notre Dame's defense. So that's what I'll go with right now. But I mean, the thing about Notre Dame, I guess, that I'm starting to realize as we're having this conversation is that there's just a lot of, Notre Dame doesn't have maybe the guys that stand way out from the crowd. I mean, they get them once in a while, the Jalen Smiths of the world. But I say Julian Okwara, but I guess in the back of my mind, I'm like, is there really even somebody that's far and away better than everyone else? I'm not convinced there is, but for the sake of and spirit of answering the question, that's what I'll go with.